So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our regular Friday lunchtime webinar brought to you by Constructing Excellence, the STA and the CIOB. Delighted to be with you again here today. I'm fresh from COP26, got back late last night. So looking forward to what we have to hear today from Matt. We're just going to give it a few seconds more to allow people through the door. Many people like me come in last minute, Zoom call straight from one to another. So we just need to give folks a chance to come in, and then we'll go through the opening welcome and so on. So good to see you all, or I can't see you all, but good to see some of you. As I say, just bear with us, and we'll get to the event. What you might like to do as we're preparing to kick off is just note the slido.com reference there. Slido.com hashtag LM121121. Today's date, my daughter's birthday, 12th of the 11th, 21. So hashtag LM121121. Just perhaps get ready for that. Let me see. What do you think we ought to do, Howard? I think maybe we'll go into your little bit of introduction, and then we'll get underway, I think. Yeah.
Let's get the poll going. Good afternoon to everyone who's joining us. Many of you will be familiar. We will be running Slido poll. So for those of you who would like to know where to go, who are unfamiliar, you can go into Slido one of two ways. You can use your phone, the QR reader, and you'll find the QR code up at the top left, or you can join at slido.com. And if you go there, you can then put in today's code, which is LM121121. And happy birthday to your daughter. So we're going to do the poll straight away. Now, there's some open questions in this, so don't feel that you have to rush to answer it. We will be actually going through the poll after Matt has finished his presentation. So you will have a little bit of time to complete the poll. We will be using Slido as we normally do for Q&A. So if you have a question for Matt, please do put it into Slido. It means it all goes into one place. Everyone can see it who's logged in. And of course, you can vote for it. So if you think it's a good question, better than others, you can push a little button, thumbs up, and that means that question will come to the top of the queue. Towards the end of today, we will also be posting a link where you can give us some feedback on today's session. Please do take, it doesn't take more than about a minute. Please do take that minute to give us feedback. We will keep that open for 15 minutes after today's session. So again, you don't have to rush, but please do take a minute to do it. So let's now go through the questions. So Abraham, if we can have the first one up. What are the biggest safety risks you are facing on your site? Now, this is an open question, so you can put one or as many of those down. It's quite interesting if you will share this information with us, because in terms of knowledge and commonness of this risk would be interesting to know. So please do put those down. Okay, so let's go to question number 2. Again, an open question. How can safety-focused technology present new business opportunities for the construction industry? So this is safety-focused technology. So if you have a view on that, please do share it with us. Again, don't have to answer it straight away. You can think about that and put it in. You've got about 20 minutes or so before we'll come to the poll answers. And to the third question, how important is your current data in your future decision making? Now, this is quite a simple one. Please give us your rating on this. 1 is low, so that's not important. 10 is high. And to the next question, please, Abraham. Why is collecting data important to you? Again, an open question. Please give us your views as why collecting data is important to you. And the last question, what tools do you use for collecting safety data on site? So one person has already answered it, as you can see at the top hand. So it would be good if we could get your answers in the next 20 minutes or so. So many thanks for your time. Look forward to going through these answers later. Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Howard. By coincidence, I've come straight to this Zoom meeting from a CLC housing safety group, which has just been created by the Construction Leadership Council. And I've been invited to sit on the health and safety group, looking at the whole of the housing sector, which is somewhat of a coincidence. But today we are looking at the hugely important topic or subject area for construction, health, safety, and interestingly, Matt, we've linked in quality, haven't we? Because certainly from an SDA perspective, we put the whole health, safety, well-being agenda very much under our STA Assure scheme in terms of quality assurance, because it should feature, I think, in that. So it's interesting you've done that. Matt is head of growth and partnerships at Plinkset, which is we're very pleased, Matt, that you've been able to give up your precious time to be with us today, and I'm sure we're all ears. So we're going to hand over to you for the next 20 minutes or so, and then we'll be back to take you through the responses to the survey, and then get the questions from our delegates listening in. So don't forget, folks, get asking those questions on slido.com. So when we get to the end of Matt's presentation, we've got plenty of meat on the bone to go at. So over to you, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, not so much precious time this week. I've actually taken the week off. So we've been, I've had a nice break from wallpapering today. So it's exciting to share some of our thoughts with you guys as we go forward. So I'll just share our presentation and our vision of the future of construction safety, health and quality on site. I'll load up the presentation now and we can go through this. Hopefully there were some interesting questions there that could get some thoughts, some thought-provoking side of things. Be good to hear some of your view on how this can be interacted, or certainly with the vision of construction health and safety, and how we can move away from a human element into something a bit more digital. So, as we mentioned, construction sites are dangerous places, but incidents don't just happen on their own. They happen because of poor communication, human error, and that leaves for high potential for hazardous acts and conditions. So just to put that into perspective, there's £1.6 billion per year of tangible costs in the construction industry due to health and safety losses. 2.1 million working days are lost. There are 40 deaths in 2019-20. Now, we always say that one is too many. And if you look at, outside of the safety element of a construction site, we've got 60,000 utility strikes. That's construction industry are laying utilities services and then digging them up 2 years later and hitting them and causing huge issues within local environments. So, there's a huge issue within underground service strikes at the moment within the construction industry. And we think, as we've all experienced over the past 18 months, there's this huge risk of contagious diseases within the construction industry where there's lots of people interacting in close proximity to each other. And we believe it's time for the construction industry to radically change how those hazardous activities is managed, to reduce project delays, reduce the risk of harm, and increase the speed of site communications. Now, we realise that you want to keep, to enhance safety, you need to keep the wrong people away from the wrong places at the wrong time. So that's why we've created a hazard zone access control system that restricts access of people and plant to areas of high potential danger based on their role or purpose. So what does that look like within the construction industry? So we've got huge issues, and you can just look at those 40 deaths and break them down into certain areas. So falls from height is the biggest impact on death in the construction industry in the UK at the moment. So what if we could create a red zone, a raised platform or a stairway preventing those falls from height and alerting people in real time before they get too close to a dangerous environment. Maybe even a red zone around earthworks, preventing people being struck by moving vehicles. That people-plant interface is crucial in the construction environment, and people have to work in close proximity to plant, but it's a very dangerous environment if people aren't kept aware of their surroundings and given the tools to be able to operate in a safe manner. We can look at other areas like red zone outside of a defined area, preventing people being struck by moving vehicles. Safety lanes within the construction environment. I was driving down the M62 yesterday, and straight away there's workforce in the road and operating in close proximity to moving traffic. So what if we could prevent those people from getting too close to that hazardous area based on their role or purpose? And then, of course, we've spoken about service strikes. What if we could control the use of tools or machines on top of buried services so that we can prevent firstly them being hit, and secondly then the effects of the latent effects of electrocution or explosion. And there's lots of other use cases as well that we can look at, not just within people but in places as well. So we can have red zones within areas working within tunnels, so that we can make sure that our people are kept safe in that dangerous environment. Well, what about if we could create an access way, a digital access way, so we can improve the movement and flow of the people across site? We can start a monitoring and understanding where people are going and why they're going there, and not just having, looking out the window and shouting at somebody to say, look, you're in the wrong place. We can physically do that with a digital hazard zone access control system. And then we can also look at that with machines as well. Now, huge issues within the construction environment, and there are multiple digital technologies out there that try to prevent machines from interfacing in a dangerous manner with people, but there's still issues on sites. So what if we can protect machines around embankments, so we can stop them vehicles overturning and that related cost impact? What about creating an amber zone around areas sensitive to vibration, so that we can start monitoring people's quality, that kind of wellness within a residential environment, for example, where they're working in close proximity to residential areas. We can start restricting the use of vibration rollers and other pieces of heavy machinery, as well as creating red zones out in designated areas to make sure that plant is kept safe and the environment is monitored in a certain way, so that we are preventing those incidents on site in terms of health and safety, as well as that quality area with buried services and access to overhead cables. Now, we realise that these are huge issues and that technology hasn't always been successful because the consistency and the quality has been varied. So we've created Protect, which is a hazard zone access control system that consists of a series of smart sensors that are designed to protect people, plant and places. These give an early warning system to restrict access based on role and purpose to areas of high potential danger. The team tag protects people, the hazard tag connects hazardous places, and the machine tag protects people and places from the impact of machinery. So the team tag is a single helmet-mounted sensor providing market-leading 360-degree protection. With audible, visual, and haptic feedback designed for the construction environment, the team tag can reduce the likelihood of harm by notifying users of their unauthorized access to zones. So those zones that we looked at there, we can start restricting people based on their role and purpose to areas of working from height if they haven't got the correct qualification, or working in close proximity to machine and in ecological zones. We can manage social distancing, we can monitor contact tracing, we can create a hazard resource, and we can create hazard zones and resource monitoring and compliance zones. So we can look at how could we start promoting productivity within our sites, and we can start monitoring the flow of people around our sites as well. And ultimately, we're there to protect people from machines in dangerous places. And a functionality that comes within the system is its ability to respond to SOS and trigger site-wide evacuation alarms. So we're trying to keep our people safe within the construction environment. The next part of the Protect system is a patent protected tool which enables zones to be rapidly formed as part of the existing health and safety process, segregating people and plant from a hazard. Hazard tags can be mounted temporarily to a cone or to a wall that monitors proximity to temporary work and also permanent work. The hazard tag provides a clearly visible reference of the hazard zone, improving that speed and flexibility of segregation. So we can control access to zones based on their role and purpose, like we've spoken about. So those examples of lifting zones, of overhead work exclusion zones, areas of environmental restrictions. We're working on a project at the moment where there are yellow-crested newts, and we need to make sure that people are restricted from that environment so that we can enhance that environmental area. And obviously, as it's quite topical at the moment, if we can start understanding where people and plant are moving across sites, we can start understanding the usage of energy, we can start understanding how much impact we're having in the environment, and we can start using all of that data to make a more profitable and safer site. And then the final part of our Protect system is a rapidly deployable hazard zone for machines. So the machine tag can be attached to a range of equipment ranging from 4x4s to an 80-ton excavator, and it can be temporarily mounted with non-evasive brackets, meaning that it's more consistent protection available, protecting those people and plant and damage to those equipment. So we can monitor machine location, proximity and utilization, protect people from machines, protect machinery from damage, and prevent collision with buried or overhead services, as well as that restriction to environmental zones. But we realise it's really difficult to capture data on construction sites. They can be spread over large areas with lots of obstacles that are always moving, or even within a tunnel or within a cutting. So we created Connect, which is a private network designed specifically for the construction environment that's deployable within minutes across large sites, deep within buildings or tunnels. It's flexible, secure, and cost effective. But we realise that you want high quality and useful data when you need it, so that you can drive continuous change. So we've created Effect, which is a browser-based platform which allows you to continuously improve the safety, security, and quality on site, improving response times with a better understanding of your key problem areas. We want you to promote compliance and share site data to those that need it when they need it. Effect gives you better visibility, increase the ability to assess risk, and decrease insurance exposure. So our browser-based platform allows you to configure those hazard zones that we've mentioned already. Manage your workforce groups, so we can look at areas such as qualification or responsibility or role. We can display insights about activity over time and manage the flow of data. So it gives you a company, site, and user dashboard, inbuilt track and trace system, a smart permit system, an event log, and an alert management process that allows you to drive real change across your construction environment. The system doesn't use any personal data, so it protects the privacy of your workforce. And we understand the value of data sharing, and as a result, have created a bi-directional API which allows you to expose all event data generated within the platform to external services. So additionally to what we, how we perceive the future of construction health and safety within that environment, there are multiple other sensors and SaaS-based platforms that we can integrate, but also can be used in partnership and grow that digital workforce or that connected worker environment. So we make it really easy to send an SMS, an email, or a webhook when an event does occur, or you can configure those hazard zones through your existing GIS platform. And we want you to see the benefit of a connected hazard zone access control system. So you can protect your people, protect your plant, protect your places, and most importantly, protect those projects so that they come in on time and in budget. We're a technology company that was set up to disrupt the industry, and we're gaining traction. So we're working with some of the largest tier 1 construction companies in the UK and internationally. We have over 3,000 devices in the field and have created a network of over 185 connected places. There's lots of different use cases within that environment. The work that we've been doing with HS2 has been around social distancing, but obviously as we move away from a COVID impacted world, or maybe we're moving back into one soon. I've just seen a couple of the rugby players for England have been tested positive for COVID, which is disappointing for everybody involved, I'm sure, but that's been the primary use case for us. But there's so many other functionalities that come out with, a smart system that's designed to connect the workforce. where you can see and monitor the movement of people and plant in those dangerous places. And ultimately, that we're making people go home safe. We want to reduce that 40 deaths to 0. Now, will that be realistic? Probably not. Human error is always going to occur, but if we can provide them with an early warning system so that they've got, so we can remove some of that human impact, then we're doing a good job of getting them to a place of 0 harm. Obviously, we're not stopping there. 5G technologies will further enhance the potential of Plincs to better protect and affect your workforce with enhanced connectivity. Plincs is working on a turnkey 5G solution for projects and solution owners, which will be commercially available next year. So we want you to join us now so that we can make future hazards a thing of the past. Thank you. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and questions and to see if this technology would be really useful within the construction environment.
Okay, Matt, thank you very much. If you'd like to stop sharing your screen now, that would be good. Abraham, I wonder if we could have the results of the survey up to start the conversation. Don't forget, folks, if you've got any questions, kindly go to slido.com, #LM with today's date, which is 12/11/21, and we'll go to those questions in a moment. But in the meantime, Abraham, if you could share the screen with the results of the initial survey, we'll take Matt through that. So here we go. Let's see how it's going. Any minute now, Matt, any minute now. So what are the biggest safety risks you're facing? So there we go. There's a few. Service strikes, unrealistic production programs, trips and slips, working from height, hot working, COVID, falls from heights, behavioral safety, dust. Any comments on that? Is that what you would have expected to see?
Yeah, it's really interesting that COVID is still mentioned in there. Obviously, that the shift has happened quite rapidly to we're not wearing face masks in shops anymore, and the construction environment's gone back pretty quickly to that. So that's interesting to see that it's still a big safety risk on site. I think there are the data from HSE. That's pretty much there in terms of what we relayed. I think that dust is an interesting one, and I'd be interested to hear a little bit more of how that is affecting people on site and what they're doing to manage that. We obviously could look at segregating areas that have got potential of dust kick up and things like this, but there are probably better tools on the market, and I'm sure there's lots of technology out there to monitor the impact of dust on. And this is where we want to get to as a business, this connected workforce, this sort of disruptive technology business that's there to, providing data on all of these things. So that it's not just, the construction industry is notorious for being a bit slow to adopt to these new technologies. So if we can find an embedded system that can monitor all of that, then great, really.
Okay, I'm sure you'll agree with me that actually during the last couple of years, thanks to the leadership of the Construction Leadership Council, in particular the site operating procedures, we've actually done quite well as an industry in this area to get our act together to make sure that the health and safety and every other procedure on site is adequate. So much so that I think our industry is now held up as best practice by government in terms of how you could and should behave. So that for me is a very positive, and certainly the message that came out of COP26 yesterday is that we should use what's happened in the last sort of 20 months to make sure we move forward with all these important issues in an integrated and collaborative fashion. So that's good. Right, let's have the next one up then, please. So how could safety focus technology, etc.? The whole idea of golden thread should include health and safety, monitor activities on site, and don't know. That's very honest. So Matt, any comments on that?
I actually think that's really interesting that don't know, sorry comment, because I think that enhances this idea that perhaps the construction industry at times is a bit behind with technology and adoption of technology, and it's a certain type of organization that will see the value of it.
In a list of sectors, we were second bottom to agriculture when it comes to the adoption of technology. So.
Yeah, it's such a huge, a manual into, you look at manufacturing environment that are huge, and then I know a lot of construction industry are taking a lot of this best practice from the sort of the Six Sigma and lean manufacturing processes and all of this side of things. And with that, we're at a great place now where we can start integrating technology in that, so that we take some of the human error element away, and we can start pushing this on and using useful data to actually make significant change. So, and I think that it may be a bit of a flippant comment on there, but it does sum up where the state of the industry as a whole, that there is still a gap between maybe our business as a technology provider and the expectations of the construction industry. So it's about trying to bridge that, I guess, and trying to find how, what are the best ways for, firstly, the construction industry to realize that there are problems and that technology can solve them. And then secondly, how can we actually implement these on site so that it is used effectively by the right people at the right time? So,
okay. Any comments on the first two?
Look, I think monitoring activities on site is definitely an area that that we can use. This push and drive of data. Absolutely, you can only understand what you can see and how you can digest that, and using tools such as ours and lots of other pieces of equipment in the industry can provide that insight. And I think, I agree. Driving health and safety through the process and the adoption of technology is huge. There's tools out there that provide that level of removing that human error from sites. And I agree with you what you said, Andrew, about best practice has improved exponentially, right? And we are an industry that have recognized that it's so important that people go home safely, but we're still human. And if we can digitalize those human inaccuracies, then hopefully we can start providing tools to be able to promote compliance, all of those other bits and pieces.
And I see that productivity's arrived as well, which is a very interesting comment, because that I know is going to link into one of the questions I'm going to ask you later. So Abraham, let's go to the next. There we go. How important is your current data in future decision making? So I would, on the whole, towards the upper end there of the figures. Small percentage down at halfway, but mostly 7, 8, and 10, which is encouraging, I would suggest, isn't it, Matt?
Absolutely. I think, and this is one of the biggest challenges that we've seen is, we were speaking to a major contractor, and they said this is the first year that they brought in physical software developers into their business. Construction industry hiring IT people was beyond feasibility 5 years ago. So they've recognised that the importance of data and how they can use that to best advantage is really important, and I think that's reflected there, right?
Okay, let's have the next slide then, Abraham, please. Why is collecting data important? It is should do more, helps make decisions, lessons to be learned, highlights risks because it informs us on risks and poor contractors. Interesting. Any comments to make there, Matt, or is that pretty much what you'd expect?
I think that's where we're at in terms of that. The comment about poor contractors is an interesting one, and I guess it's always a difficult place where you have to trust somebody who's working within your environment. If you can provide them with tools, or if you can have tools that can monitor that data or that movement of those people, perhaps you could have a better view and better visibility of what they're doing on your site. So, yeah.
Okay. Have we got anything else, Abraham? Have we come? Oh, yes, there we go. What tools do you use? There we go. So incident reports, RIDDOR, yes, Unshore, Field View, electronic forms. Yeah.
Cool.
So any names there missing, Matt, that you would have expected? A consultant?
It's still interesting that we're filling in forms, and I appreciate they are electronic, but perhaps we could, integrate those into a wider system where, we're implementing best practice and we're understanding that, but also then using the data that's coming back from other, if we just look at our technology, for example, using all of that data to then go and make some change, and using that to actually drive, continuous improvements and things like this. And then that can all, it's a continuous improvement loop that we use those environmentally, we use best practice, those forms, data to continually drive performance change across sites. So, yeah.
Okay. I think that's the last one, Abraham, isn't it? Yeah. So let's go to the questions. I've only had a couple looking at my phone. So folks, if you've got any questions for Matt, please go to Slido and ask them now. While I'm waiting, I'm going to go to the two that we've already received. So can we have those up on the screen, please, Abraham? So Constructing Excellence works very closely with GIRI, the Get It Right initiative. Is this an organization with which you operate?
Not currently, but that part of my remit is definitely to open the doors for partnerships and exploring best practice with other leaders within the industry. So I think that's something that we definitely would take from this and look into, I think.
Okay, the chair of our health and safety group in the Midlands is Steve Green, who works for Bowmer and Kirkland. It was him that actually brought this group to our attention. And I know they do some good stuff. In fact, as I say, I was in a meeting before I came here with CLC Housing Health and Safety Group, and I actually suggested myself that they should look at GIRI. So okay, well that's maybe an introduction we can offer you.
Yeah, perfect.
And now there's one about us as an organization. So Constructing Excellence is a best practice organization. So are you able to engage with us and share your knowledge and best practice? That's quite an interesting question, because we are, as an organization, one that wants to share best practice and share knowledge across our members, which range completely from across the supply chain. So from clients to contractors to consultants to supply chain, in building, in housing, in infrastructure, in FM. Is the information you're giving, is it sort of sensitive, and would it have would you be able to share it for commercial reasons?
From our perspective, we'd be happy to look at this. Obviously, the data that we have is all sensitive data at the moment, so we can look at how we can integrate into other systems, or provide some insight into that. Obviously, we'd have to be careful with how that would work. But certainly some of the sort of the key findings that we've seen with insights, we're comfortable to share with.
So as a sort of, let me put my own question to that then. The organizations you're working with at the moment, I think you mentioned HS2. Mm-hmm. Is the knowledge that you're creating there, is that something you could share with the rest of the industry?
Yeah, and that's part of the process that we do currently is exactly that. Our CEO, Tommy Williams, sits on the I3P safety board and shares good best practice with them. And they're looking at how to use some of the data that we've collected, how to use some of the data that other smart sensors are collecting, and create this collaborative working group so that they can promote some change within sites. So absolutely, we can do that. I think it's still early days within some of these rollouts, only 18 months or so. There's still an awful lot more data to be collecting that can inform decision making. So as we collect data and use that, we can integrate that into lots of other areas and promote best practice.
So certainly from a CE perspective, I'm going to put you in touch with Steve Green at Bowmer and Kirkland, who leads the health and safety. We actually call it quality and compliance. But that's the group that would be interested in what you're doing, because it covers all these issues. Right, let me have a look on my phone to see if there's any more questions come in. I can't see any more, Abraham. Can you? No, I don't think we've got any more.
I can see one in the chat there. So
is there? I beg your pardon. I'm looking.
Just asking how much it costs.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's actually, and obviously it would be a question. Can't dodge that. It's actually one of the best.
I was looking in the Slido, which is where we ask for questions to be put. Yeah.
It's actually one of the best bits about the system. It works out to being about 75p a day. So for people to go home safe for 75p a day, for me, maybe I've got a biased view on these things, but I think it's a pretty robust system, to be fair. So.
Okay. And when you say 75p a day, you mean per
user?
Per user. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Are there any more questions, folks? Either on Slido, I can't see anything, or maybe in the chat box. Let's have a look in the chat box. Stella's got another question in chat, but is that after setup costs?
Generally, that's how it we would work. Obviously, it depends on the project and the environment that we would be working in. And Stella, if you want to get in touch with us afterwards to discuss the projects, and great. We work on quite a consultative approach where we let you take the lead and build this. So, but yeah, generally that's pretty much all in. So,
okay. Anything else, folks? I've not got anything now in the chat box that we haven't done, and I've got nothing in. Oh, hang on, I've got one more question. It's just come in, snuck in, Matt. Here we go, from Richard Kachansky. Now, Richard is the chair of our CESW quality and compliance group, so works very closely with Steve. Can we put that up on the screen, please, Abraham? And Stella's now put another comment in the chat box. She's saying heading up architects department so would be interested in testing this. That's a good one for you. So there we go. Abraham, sorry, can we have the other question that's just come in from Richard up on the screen so that Matt can see it, please? Or shall I read it out? Let's read it out. So Richard asks, further to the previous questions, what examples can you give of any changes that have happened using the site data to date?
So we've got a really good one, and it's just starting to roll out now, where we've restricted vibration rollers from close proximity to residential buildings. They were getting fined quite regularly by the local authority because people complained and things like this. By putting this system in place, they've been able to monitor exactly the movement of those vibration rollers within their site. They've been able to then restrict access to those places and have consequently reduced their overhead costs because the local authorities are now not getting involved. So they've changed their operating process and now are monitoring exactly 30-meter distance from those dangerous places. So that's just a small one, and there are lots of other use cases within the flows and movement of people across large sites, which has been monitored and changed so that they've adapted walkways to make sure that the flow of people have been increased within the site. And it's just given a lot more visibility to people that they can understand now where their people are at a lot more granular detail, whereas before they were a bit blind to that on site. And what we've done with the work we've been doing with HS2 and the business case that we put together with them, it's going to save them £8.9 million, and that looks at the implementation of or restriction of the movement of people, gaining productivity gains that way, as well as the impact of health and safety risk and minimising that, as well as increasing all of those good practices across their sites as well. So.
Okay, I've got another question in the chat box. Is the system GPS based?
So there's a mixture of technologies within the system. So there's a mixture of Bluetooth, GPS, and our own proprietary ultra-wideband radio. Now there are a few technologies out there that have been around for a few years that are RFID based. That's a yes or no answer, and it's whereas ours looks at that complete movement of those people and places, people, plant, and places. Essentially, there's a little bit different technologies, but yeah, essentially
goes on to ask, does the system record operatives' movements for productivity studies?
Absolutely, that's one of the areas that we can look at, and that's this comes down to site adoption as well. Your data is only as good as how much data goes into it. What we've seen is some of our organisations that we've worked with have been able to monitor the flow of where their people have gone, and they've been able to then do real-time evaluation of exactly how long the flow is taking, and kind of taking some of that best practice from lean manufacturing to improve in productivity.
I've got some good news for you. Stella says she's got your number off the website and will contact you next week. So
thanks, Stella. That would be great. Yeah, we'll catch up next time.
I'm looking now across all my various mediums about So I've got no more questions on Slido. I don't think there's anything else in the chat box. So, Abraham, could we have the final poll up then for people to have a look at? So what we would ask you to do is fill in this poll. Matt, can I thank you for giving of your valuable time, albeit you were at home this week decorating, and therefore probably you're quite pleased to have a bit of time off.
Hey,
So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your experiences, your knowledge, your best practice case studies. That's good. From a CE point of view, I think if you would consider joining us, that would be very positive, because I think you'd have quite a lot to bring to the party.
great. Yeah.
So thank you for your time, and thank you to our Leaders Meets hosts for organising everything as well as they always do, except I'm a bit nervous. I haven't seen the question, Abraham, up on the poll. The final poll is, have we got that available on the screen? And then all the details of next week and so on. You seem to have frozen on me. I've not got anything. I didn't get the last question from Richard, and now I'm not getting the poll. Is there any reason for that, Abraham?
Not
Howard.
quite sure what's happened. No, not quite sure what's happened here.
He's disappeared.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
hang on here a minute. He will be back. I'm sure what's happened is he probably did frozen. So let's just wait until he logs in.
Okay, I was going to go and sort of give the details of the CPD certificate for people.
Unfortunately, I don't actually have those, so I can't help you there, Andrew. But let's just give him a moment to come back.
Yes. So while we're waiting, folks, let me tell you that this time next week, we're going to have a very interesting presentation from the Foals Hill Health Centre team. Now, this was a project that won many awards in the Constructing Excellence Midlands Awards back in September. And it's the first passive design primary healthcare building in the UK. So looking at passive house in terms of design. And that's going to be the focus of our attention this time next week. So I'm hoping that that will prove very, very useful and very interesting. So please do sign in next week. Well, Howard, I'm not sure we can keep folks hanging on much longer.
No, I agree.
Oh, hang on, he's
trying to-
back. He's trying to come back or in audio. Abraham, are you back with us in audio?
Yes, sorry.
Have you got the CPD code you could share with us for today?
Yeah, 1 second.
So if you want certification for today, then you need to go to MyProPass. CE-867 is the code for today. So if what Matt's had to say, if you want CPD certification, then please. And I've already given a plug for next week, but I'm sure that's the next slide, isn't it, Abraham? Yeah, there we go. There's the Foals Hill Health Centre First Passive Design, as I mentioned. So there we are. So just leaves me now to thank you all for attending. I hope you found it useful. I certainly did. And I wish you a very pleasant afternoon and weekend. But for now, cheerio. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.